were a contestant on The Amazing Race, which is the reality show competition that has contestants racing around the world. And so I'm guessing that your sense of adventure and travel really goes far back. So tell me sort of where it comes from.
Sure. It's great to be here. Travel is something I'm extremely passionate about and is a huge part of TOMS. And as Booth said, you know, one of my kind of big travel adventures in my life was when I was on the TV show The Amazing Race. My sister Paige and I raced around the world for 31 days. Unfortunately, we lost $1 million by 4 minutes, which is kind of a bummer. But you know, I think that my kind of love of travel really started when I was a kid. We grew up in Texas, and every year our family would take 2 family vacations. The first one was we would go to this place in Georgia called Callaway Gardens. We would drive like 13 hours across the country in our minivan, and we would get there. And the cool thing about Callaway Gardens is it's like summer camp for the whole family. So my parents would have the adult fun activities during the day, the kids would have theirs, and then at night all the families would get together. And it was always a sense of adventure because A, the road trip to get there, but B, once we were there, it was a total safe place. So you could just be, you know, this adventure all throughout this compound, and they had all kinds of great things to do. And so that trip we always looked forward to every year. And then the other trip we always did is we would go skiing during the holidays. So we usually go up to Colorado and once again drive the whole way, and that's half the adventure is getting there. But you know, having those 2 trips to look forward to every single summer and winter since I can remember was kind of the beginning of my travel, and it's been a part of my life ever since.
And the whole idea for TOMS Shoes came about as a result of a trip you took to Argentina, right? So tell us about that.
Sure. So you know, after I started, you know, kind of becoming an entrepreneur and starting businesses, I found that I was working so much during the year that I needed some time to recharge and refresh. So I started this kind of tradition that every January I would take 1 month off. And that takes a lot of discipline to do. We have businesses that are growing and demands from customers and clients and partners. And so in taking this month off, after we were on The Amazing Race, I decided that I wanted to go back to the places that we were on the race, because you don't really get to experience those places because you're going so fast. And so one of the places was Brazil and Argentina. So in 2006, I went down to Argentina to go back and really spend a whole month there recharging and refreshing. And at that time, I was in the online driver's education business.
Right.
So very, very different than what I do now. But I decided to take a month off, and I went down there and just immersed myself in the culture. I took some polo lessons, some tango lessons. I visited a bunch of wineries, you know, and it was there in one of the cafes that I met some women who were doing volunteer work. Specifically, they were collecting slightly used shoes to give to children who needed shoes to go to school. So part of the requirement, the uniform requirement, was that they needed shoes, and many of these children didn't have them, so they were being denied their education. And that was really the impetus of the idea of TOMS, is I wanted to help, and I was so impressed by these women and what they were doing to get these shoes to the kids. But I wanted to find a more sustainable way to do it. And so the idea really came in Argentina on that trip when I was talking to, actually it was my polo teacher of all people, about how we could help this organization on an ongoing basis. And that's where the one-for-one idea came to me, and that instead of just supporting them as a charity, start a business where the giving would be incorporated in every purchase.
And just to backtrack a little bit, I mean, so you're in this cafe, you're there for a month. How do you plan to live somewhere in a foreign country for a month? I mean, where did you stay? How did you deal with language issues?
You know, I didn't do very well at the language issues, and I still don't speak Spanish, which is just embarrassing, as much time as I've spent there. But, you know, I think when you go somewhere for a month, it really allows you to experience the local culture. When you go somewhere for a weekend or a week, you end up doing the highlights that every other tourist does, and you don't necessarily get into the underbelly of the city or of the country. And so when this specific month in Argentina, what I decided to do is I wanted to learn a couple things. I wanted to learn to play polo. I grew up riding horses in Texas, but had never played polo. I thought that would be interesting. So I signed up for like a 2-week kind of like polo camp experience where I lived on a farm, and immediately by doing that, I was like, in the rural area and meeting people, and that was great. And then the other 2 weeks, I just kind of plotted interesting things in Buenos Aires and around the city that I wanted to do. But just like meeting these women in the cafe, I think one of the things that's so important when you travel is to be more extroverted and outgoing than you ever are in your regular life.
That's a good point.
Because the only way you're going to meet interesting people and you're going to have unique experiences is by engaging with the locals or with other fellow travelers that are there. And one of the things I always did in my month off is I always went by myself. I think that's another big thing is, if you can, or if you just go with, maybe your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, but really constantly looking every day to meet someone new, to hear some local's favorite restaurant or something that's off the beaten path. But I think a month is a great time because you can really immerse yourselves in